We don't party, we podcast.
Yeah. Hey, what's up, guys? This is Dakota.
And I'm Clayton.
And you're on the Falling Forward podcast.
Our guest today is Riley Glass. Riley is originally from Lubbock, Texas, but is currently at the University of Tulsa studying petroleum management. We talked to Riley today about his time growing up on the ranch, what it's like in college, and how he can leverage his career for his Christian faith.
We have a wonderful conversation, and we know it's one that you will enjoy. The Falling Forward podcast exists to encourage Christians to continue to gain ground in their faith. Please subscribe to the podcast and leave a review. And thank you for joining us as we have insightful conversations about never falling back, but falling forward in the Christian faith. Riley Glass is a good friend of me and Clayton's. His girlfriend, y'all been dating how long?
3.5 years. Yeah, 3.5 years.
So 3.5 years, and y'all have been together for a while. And so she actually goes to school with us, and we're good friends with her. And then through her, we met you, and we're all good friends. For the guests, for the listeners, I'd love to just talk about, before we dive into the discussion today, a little bit, man, about your past. As far as I think it's so cool that a lot of millennials, like people like us who are from the, I'm from Atlanta, Georgia, Clayton's from Missouri, that you grew up on a ranch.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I grew up on a West Texas ranch, an hour east of Lubbock. Never moved a house. I was born on the ranch, or not on the ranch, but in Lubbock, and was raised there, and left the first time I went to college. So that was really cool, and just did it all. I mean, we worked cattle, ride horses, work sheep. I rope, I hunt, I can weld, and all that. Just all from being on the ranch and learning things.
A jack of all trades right here, ladies and gentlemen.
Hey,
yes.
Yeah.
Because I remember me and my wife Maggie, we actually went out to your ranch to stay for the weekend. Mm-hmm. We would ride horses with you and CB, Chloe Beth, your girlfriend. And
How much land do y'all have?
We live on, let me see, okay. So the ranch that I live on is about 10 miles in length, north and south, and about 5 miles wide, east and west. And that's the ranch I live on. My dad grew up down in Midland, so we got a couple other ranches down there, but it's a great place to be. It's definitely we definitely live on the prettiest ranch.
I knew it was big because Dakota was telling me when he went out though. He said I pulled on the driveway and I had to drive like another 5 miles
Yeah.
to get to the house.
5 miles to his house.
All of my friends always made fun of me because my driveway was 5 miles long, and they were always like, "Oh, I can't bring my Camaro out here," and I always had to like go pick them up at the front gate and stuff. But yeah, it was definitely isolated, for sure.
I always thought it was funny because I remember asking you that, like, what happens if you like forget your wallet or something?
Oh, it's in Lubbock, or like you're just, I don't know.
Like you're always, like you leave house and you drive 4 hours down your driveway and you're like, oh my gosh, I forgot my keys.
So how far out of town are you? How far out of Lubbock?
So Lubbock, I went to school in Lubbock, and that's 70 miles to Lubbock one way.
You drove 70 miles to go to school every day.
70 miles to go to school. My senior year, every day, I went to a
your eyes, Clayton.
Well, I thought my high school was out of town and kind of in the country. It was in a cow field, for crying out loud, but it was only a 15-minute drive.
Oh yeah, that's how long it takes to get out the driveway.
Oh man,
that is. Yeah, so school is a long haul, and then athletics on top of that. But and people used to ask me like, well, why don't you just like get a townhouse, like live in Lubbock during the school year, and then stay on the ranch on the weekends? I'm like, I don't want to do that. Like, this ranch is it's a great place to be, and it's a place I love, and it's way prettier than Lubbock. If anyone's ever been to Lubbock, you'll understand exactly what I'm talking about. Great place, but not so much to look at.
Well, your experiences growing up, because I remember when I first met you, I thought it was so cool that you've had the way you were raised was completely different than how we were raised. And which was neat because, man, I meet you and CB, and obviously we go to Bible college. So your girlfriend, she's a Christian, and you're a Christian. So how does that come about, especially being so isolated? Who kind of played a role in that in your, when you met Christ and everything like that? Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so I remember the first time, or when I got saved. I was like 6 years old. I was in a feed truck, and we were feeding cows with my dad. And I would have to like accredit like my faith and the strength of it to my parents, just because church is a place that you're supposed to go, and it's good to go and have that fellowship. We're told to in the Bible, but if you're not putting in extra work, and developing your relationship with Christ, it's not gonna, it'll show. And so my parents were great examples to me growing up on what that looks like, just living a daily life in servitude to Christ. And so that was their example is definitely what put me on the track that I'm on. And then in high school, they just really encouraged me to make it my own, make my faith my own.
Yeah.
We all come to that point where it's not, you're not getting Jesus at your youth gatherings at church or on Sunday mornings, like you did when you were a kid.
Yeah, it's a little different. Yeah,
it's different. And not that you're not getting Jesus there, but it becomes more personal when you invite him into your life in just a one-on-one. And so I especially remember that my junior year of high school, I was really wondering what to do, like with my life, where to go to school, like what do I need to go to school, like what can I do? And I just remember my parents encouraging me to take that time to just get with the Lord and read the Bible and stuff. And that's definitely when I became I took another step in my faith.
Yeah,
growing closer. So I definitely they pushed me to be what I am, and I'm thankful for them. And just that isolation, I was going back to that isolation on the ranch. 5 miles off the road, friends don't just drop by out there.
Yeah.
So you have a lot of time just to get quiet and think. The Bible says, be still and know that I'm the Lord, or be still and know that I'm God. And so that really rung true. You just get out in the pasture, and it's just so quiet. You can't hear anything. The only thing you can hear is like a cow moo or whatever, coyote howl. And so you had a lot of, it was easy to get away from distractions and that you can find in the city. And I'm even seeing that now. I'm in Tulsa in college, Tulsa, Oklahoma, and I have to purpose more to not let myself just get distracted with just things. And it was really easy to do that. Just be calm and hear from God, and at home at the ranch. So
yeah. Well, I know it's so interesting when I met you, and actually went to your house and everything. I could tell that your parents were incredible people. And just a reflection of who you are, they really raised you well. Because I'm like, and to be isolated like that, y'all are really, they play a larger role. Because I feel like when we grow up, when we have, in public, I grew up in public school and everything. In a lot of ways, I'm just women raised me, and like teachers,
Mm-hmm.
Like you learn things. And so your family was the main source, because they homeschooled you, didn't they?
Well, it was kind of a two-way deal. So I went to a university model school is what they called it. And it was the first one in Lubbock, I think. And so what that meant is that I went to school in Lubbock 3 days a week, drove to school, we had our classes, and on Tuesday, Thursdays, I was homeschooled. And so they would just teach us the lessons and give us the homework, and on Tuesday, Thursdays, we would
But is the homeschool correlated with
Yes.
the actual school?
Yes. So I would go to school, and my teacher would say, all right, here's the lesson. We'd teach us the lesson. She would assign us homework, and we would go home the next day and do that homework and come back and grade it the next day. So it was a part-time school basically. But
it's interesting. I've never heard of that.
It was a good deal.
I think Maggie did the same thing.
Yeah, it was a great deal. I really loved it, and it helped. That was another thing that my parents were really looking for when they put us in school, because they didn't want to spend their whole lives driving up and down the road, taking us to school every day. And they also were looking for a Christian education.
Yeah.
And so that was a great option, and it worked for us a long time. And I actually left there my sophomore year, just because I was so heavily involved in sports that I was spending 5 days a week, even 6 days a week sometimes, driving up and down the road for 8/10 of the year.
Wow.
of the school year, just going to sport things, and then having a lot of homework on top of that. So yeah, that was a big deal, and that's the reason I left there. But that was a great option for us as far as that goes. And
so, and you were talking a little bit about in your junior year, you're really trying to figure out what you could do next step. And so now you kind of talk about, tell the audience, the listeners a little bit about how, right now you're at Tulsa.
Mm-hmm.
Tell us how you kind of chose to go to Tulsa and what you're there for.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so that was probably so far that was one of the toughest parts of my life. I've had
including CB, because how long have you been dating CB for a while?
3.5 years, yeah. And
and they've never lived.
Yeah.
Remember this. They've never lived closer than 3 hours from each other.
No.
If you could tell the listeners, I think you and CB's story is really unique. So talk to them about how y'all kind of met and everything. It's kind of neat because you two Christian couples, and and y'all's relationship is really unique. Explain to the audience a little bit about that.
Yeah, a little backstory. So my mom is from East Texas, and she in college was recruited to come play for the Louisiana College Wildcats on their basketball team, and that's where she met Chloe Best's mom, Kim, and so it was just a long time friendship. They had they were just college friends, knew each other, and they had mutual friends, and just over the years they kept going back and forth like, oh, we need to get out at the ranch and get together and see everyone, get the kids together. It's like, yeah, but it just never happened until we tried several times, but it never happened until I guess it was the summer between my freshman and sophomore year.
Yeah.
They finally came, and like as soon as she came out there, I saw her and I was like, oh, she's good looking.
She's cute.
She cute.
And you were like, okay.
Yeah, and so we just started talking. And I called her and just like, what's your favorite color, stuff like that. Just real.
You
basic.
called her to ask what her favorite color was.
Yeah, man.
Bless.
You gotta start somewhere. So,
What you doing?
Yeah. So we spent a week. They came out for a week, and we had a great time and just hung out and did stuff on the ranch. And then I started calling her, and shortly after I asked her to be my girlfriend, and after that we just started meeting up with families together. Like we would meet in Southlake, Texas. It's about as a halfway point. She's from DeVille, Louisiana, and I'm from Lubbock, Texas, and that's a 9-hour drive. So meeting was a good option a lot of times. So we did that for several years and played sports, and it was crazy. And that was also another reason I chose to homeschool full time my junior year, was just to get to know her even better. But so that just having the two of us get to know each other in that way and communicate like that was really neat. And it was just cool how God brought us together and has brought us through a lot of stuff. But all that was during high school, and we, neither of us were knowing exactly what we were going to do. We knew we wanted to be together.
Yeah.
And still do. But it just took a lot of prayer during that time, my junior year. She was coming to Fort Worth, and I was really feeling led to go to Tulsa because of an energy management program that the University of Tulsa has.
Yeah.
I was looking really heavily at TCU.
And why did you want to look into that?
So energy management, my family's we are big into energy, which is oil, gas, wind energy. Down, like I said, my dad grew up in Midland, and that, for those who don't know, is a huge area, one of the most productive areas in the world as far as energy goes. So that's our business. We're ranchers, but we're also mineral managers, and that's what I would like to do, is continue that. And so I was looking for an education where I could go and learn more about that and how to run a business geared toward that. And one of the reasons I was looking at Tulsa was because there's only 3 schools that have that type of program, and Tulsa was one of them.
Yeah.
And I would have loved to go to TCU, but they didn't have it, and it was just
be closer to CB.
Yeah, to be closer to CB, and I mean, just my friends. And
So Tulsa is the closest one to you and to DFW?
Yes, yeah, as far as I know. And it's a great reputation and a lot of scholarship opportunity. And just after praying about it, I was really felt led to go there. And it's definitely been like ever since junior, like I said, junior year, started making that relationship my own. That came hand in hand with like learning to trust God and what He wanted to do.
Yeah.
And literally, like, I always thought I had a plan before then, but after that, it was just like one step in front of the other, and I just started praying for God to show me the next step.
Yeah.
In my life and in my relationship with Chloe Beth, because I definitely felt like it wasn't just something that we were, a casual relationship, that it was just
We're
like,
serious, intentional.
So we're serious, and like I never felt like I was supposed to, break up with her, and still don't, and looking forward to the next
y'all are kind of
there. Yeah.
Y'all are kind of that season. I know. Which is just interesting. I think your the way you grew up and everything is so it's foreign to me because I didn't grow up like that, and which
Same
is so
here.
yeah, and like our friendship has been, I've been valued that, just getting to know you, because I think you're so unique, and you give me hope in a lot of ways that that I know someone that really loves the Lord and everything. So let's talk a little bit. I think it's kind of interesting. As far as your degree, but also the fact that you go to a college that's very secular and trying to battle that with faith.
Yeah.
And also, man, I think what you're wanting to do, which is something no one really thinks about, is how you pursuing taking over the ranch. How does that incorporate in your faith? So I kind of asked you a two-sided question, but one is, man, how are you doing with your faith, being a secular college, going to where you're kind of isolated, Christian family, to being exposed to a very secular world, and then also what you're there for is to eventually, use your works as far as worship in a sense. So talk a little bit about that.
Yeah, for sure. So as far as I was raised in a Christian school, but one thing I found out early is that just because you're in a Christian school doesn't mean there's Christians in it.
Amen to that.
So that I kind of got used to that in high school, and a lot of my close friends actually went through periods of time where they were not walking with the Lord, and so I was just able to. I just grew in a role of a mentor, kind of, and an example, a loving example. Never condemning or judging them, but they knew that that's not something I did. Those things that they were doing were not what I did. And it was really neat to see just how they wouldn't cuss around me. They wouldn't talk about their parties or anything. But it wasn't because they thought I was going to judge them, but they just, out of respect for me, they didn't. And so that's kind of carried over to college. I've been able to make some really interesting friendships and just relationships there with people that are, they're finally free from their parents and stuff like that. I hear that all the time. They're like, "Oh, I'm here. I'm just going to have a great time." Even last Sunday, this guy I was talking to, I asked him how his weekend was, and he just told me all about this party, and I was like, "Oh man, I guess that's all right. That's good, I guess." And he was like, "Yeah, but I don't think I'm gonna drink for a while." And I was like, "Oh yeah." And so with that, I was able to invite him to church, and he said he was really interested. So just being there for people like that, I've really been trying to work on and been praying that God used me like that. And it takes time. It's not gonna come out because the first couple weeks of school of college, I was wanting to get many people I could put in my car and go to church, but it didn't happen that way, and it was disappointing. Because I wanted that, and that's just what I wanted to do. But I've noticed that the more you develop a relationship with someone, and just be there and listen to them, and listen to their problems and encourage them, that they may not need advice at that moment, but that if you can listen to them, that'll open a door for you to speak into their life later. And I've just really seen that as far as the secular side and
truth and grace.
Yeah, truth and grace, and just it hasn't really affected me being at a secular college in the sense that I feel bombarded with the sins of the world, because I'm used to that. I'm from Lubbock. Everyone there is Bible in one hand, a beer in another.
Amen.
So
I'm kidding. I don't drink.
No, I don't either. But that's it. And no, not to knock anyone from Lubbock. I love Lubbock, but I've seen that before. Just that idea,
Yeah, well, I mean, Matt Chandler had, have you heard the message about Matt Chandler was talking about that?
Society, yeah.
Is that we think that, how's it preaching the Bible Belt? And it's the problem is that these Christians think they're Christians.
That's exactly.
Yeah.
And they're not living.
It's almost harder because you're not having to convince a lost person who knows they're lost that they're lost. You're having to convince a lost person who doesn't think that they're lost they're lost.
That's exactly what it is. And so growing up in that, it was kind of like a cool training.
And you could probably relate to this too, because hearing you talk, I've kind of had a similar upbringing with you in the sense of raised in a Christian home, saved at a young age, went to a Christian school, then to a secular university. Growing up in church is almost a blessing and a curse at the same time, to where you're now at 24, I'm grateful for it. Grateful that I had that shield that my parents from day one were teaching me to follow the Lord and to have my relationship with him. But at the same time, I can see so many friends who have the same upbringing that I do that aren't in church anymore. But they still think they're Christian because of where they were raised, and how it can be a danger. I don't want to say a danger, but it can almost be dangerous being raised in church if the family is not very careful to distinguish true salvation as opposed to just being a part of a church. Yeah. You know what I'm saying?
100%. I see that all the time, just where I'm from, and it's a hard reality. Just because when you hear someone say they love the Lord, but then you see the actions, the fruit that doesn't go with that, it's tough. And I agree. That's probably one of the hardest things to talk to people about, because they don't know there's a problem. And so I've really enjoyed being at a secular college, to where I can say, hey, you don't like how you feel the morning after a party, like here's an option.
And they're just who they are,
Yeah.
Like there's no games. They're who they are.
Yeah.
And even like, Clayton was saying a little bit, like in the Christian world, it's just, we aren't who we act like,
Yeah.
In reality, we have this front that we put on.
Mm-hmm.
So man, with kind of what you're learning in school, so talk a little bit about that. Even I'm a little confused, like not confused, but I'm so ignorant, because that's something we, normally talk about. But man, what exactly, if you don't have to be too technical, but what exactly are you going to school for? I know you talked a little bit before.
So my major is an energy management major, and all that means is it's the business side of the energy field. So you hear a lot of people go into school for petroleum engineering, and those are the guys that go drill the oil, but I'm the guy who writes the lease for the company.
So the mind behind the...
Yeah, so like I'm the negotiator, if you could say. So what I would do is I would present a stack of papers with, royalties, what the oil company is going to pay for the oil that they extract, just all that kind of stuff, the leasing and just all the paperwork. And it's a really neat process, and there's a lot you can do with it. A lot of different directions you can go, and it can take you all over the world. But this place I'm at is a really good one. And so one thing I've really enjoyed about this major is it's not only just a bunch of business classes, but I have to learn the science behind the industry. So I'm taking, physical geology, chemistry, energy technology, I'll take a couple other science classes down the road just to understand the industry. And but then there's the business side of it as well. And one thing I'm really finding out about this industry is that it's not what you know, but who you know. And just that being relational, or like, what's the word I'm looking for?
Just connect.
Being able to connect with people.
That's every career.
Networking.
I mean, heck, that pays off where we are.
Yeah. So I was like, but especially in this one, like that's what I'm seeing is that it's just who you know and how well you can get along with people. And so I haven't gotten into just a whole bunch of it, but I have gotten into a couple of classes, and I'm really enjoying it so far.
So you're like, you're 10, 20 years from now, you want to be, you're taking over your father's ranch, probably a little later than that. You're taking over his father's ranch, and so you want to kind of negotiate. Because your dad, you told me some really neat stories of how your dad kind of followed the Lord, was very sensitive to what he had to say, and could have made some really bad business decisions, or that could have jeopardized your family and everything like that. But he kind of fell with the Lord, and when it gets to grain, and you've told me some neat stories of that. Would you like to share any of those cool?
Oh yeah. That's
this kind of the integrity of your father, the man that you're kind of following, that you're going to take over for. Explain a little bit about that.
Yeah. So my dad's one of the greatest people I know. Just his journey has been really neat. He grew up not having a ton of training. He went to church and was a great guy, but he really got saved and started trying to be sensitive to the Lord in college, early high school, or college, high school time, and just during that time he was just trying to learn, and he didn't. And one thing I've noticed about him is he grew up. He didn't have the training that I had. He just went to school and got a business degree and was kind of thrown into it. He was a ranch hand until he was 30, and then my granddad was like, "Hey, here's some wool stuff." And so he's really been seen that in his own life, that shortcoming, and been able to translate that over to us and teach us. And so I know a lot more now than he knew when he was my age, and I really am blessed by that. And but yeah, one thing he would tell you was that just that verse I quoted earlier, just be still and know that I'm God. That's all he knew to do. And he had a business venture that came up one time that would have completely changed his life and taken us a completely different direction. Probably wouldn't have been living where we live, doing what we're doing. But he just remembered that verse and meditated on that, and just got still and quiet and prayed about it. And he ended up not doing it, and it honestly just completely shifted the path. And it was a path setting decision for him. And just there's so many moments like that, especially in his own life, where huge business deals, not knowing what to do, but just when he gets still and gets in the Word and reads and prays, so
he's
been able to.
Because you talked a little bit about how he just was fantastic. So following his footsteps. I know that you, like, when I met him and everything, like, he just seems like he's, like, really impacted people's lives, and his faith has been a huge part of kind of the family business, is incorporating that. So for you, following your dad, like, how do you plan to, I mean, you're young too. How are you, 21?
19.
19 years old.
Wow.
19.
Which is crazy.
Just a baby.
Because you don't act it. Like, you don't act, you're very mature for your age and everything like that. When I was 19, I wasn't as mature as you. But man, you have a lot on your shoulders in a lot of ways, the kind of the takeover for your father. So, man, for you and the position you're in is completely different than anyone else that we would know of. But how do you plan to incorporate your faith in this career path that you're taking in the future?
Yeah, so for me going into this career path, it is a lot of pressure, because one day I do want to fill my dad's shoes and take some of that pressure off him. So that's one thing I've just done, is going to school is a big step in doing that. But as far as sharing my faith by doing this, I mean, you can share your faith just by being who you are. And I've seen that probably number one. That's the number one way I've seen my dad share his faith, is just being him. And, people know his integrity and his honesty, and they know he's a good guy, and that they can attribute that to his relationship with God, and that there's something different about him. And so especially in business, you may not be able to preach to someone, but they can see genuine just integrity, and that's not normal.
Yeah.
I've seen cowboys that worked for my dad that 10 years ago did not know the Lord at all, and just come to know him through just seeing an example in their life. And so that, to me, is one way that I definitely have been looking for, even now, a way to share Christ with people in that energy industry. Just because there's a lot of talking that goes on, and you find out who people are in this industry, especially.
There can be a lot of greed.
Yes,
and,
there's a lot of
advantage of people.
Yes, there's a huge opportunity to take advantage of people, especially people who are ignorant about just mineral and their mineral rights as owners and stuff. And so that happens all the time. And just dad being in that industry has found a lot of people who aren't, or several people who aren't. And it's because of who he is. He's been able to build a team of people who are around him and supporting this business to just make it what it is. And it's all, God and him bringing the right people along, and just being, staying true to the word, and not, faltering in any way. And
because it's probably a little different for y'all, because it's a little more entrepreneurial for you guys. So you don't really have to worry about, I'm in a career where maybe my company or my boss doesn't really like that I'm a Christian or things like that. You kind of get to, it's kind of just y'all.
Oh yeah.
But the tension could come, kind of what you were saying, when you're having to deal with other farmers, or I guess you're not farmers, or whatever y'all, oil people, just other people throughout the industry, when you have to get off the ranch and do business, that maybe there could be some tension there. Have you guys experienced any of that?
Yeah, definitely. My dad's had to run some people off just because they're trying to come in there and take advantage of him. And my he's a smart guy. But yeah, it's just being in that position, you're able to see through people in a way. You can kind of tell, just the Lord will drop that on the inside of him. This isn't someone you want to do business with, and it'll come out later on, several months later, that guy was embezzling money and stuff. And
because you tell me a story about how, and you don't have to go into detail on it. This guy basically had this new technology, and was throwing up big numbers, and it sounded great, and everyone around him, y'all's ranch, had bought into it. Yeah. And reality this company was going to take advantage of the people. Yeah. And they were actually going to lose money. Mm-hmm. And your dad, like you said, kind of listened to the Lord, kind of picked up on that and prayed, and was very hesitant, and he was pressured. And
huge amounts of pressure.
He had a lot of pressure, and I think he didn't follow through with it. He found another way out. You can tell as much as you want on that.
Yeah, I'll jump into that real fast.
That's all his business.
There was this one businessman, that's the guy I was actually referring to, that was just one of those, my dad described him as a wolf in sheep's clothing. He came to my dad, who's a CEO of our company, and presented him with this business thing and said, we'll give you X amount of dollars if you'll go in on this lease with us. And my dad was like, all right, let me think about it and look over the lease and stuff. And he said he just put a lot of pressure on my dad to get that done. And then the thing that made my dad mad was it was with several ranches, several of our neighbors around us. And this guy said, well, if the Glasses aren't doing it, we're not doing this lease. The guy. And so that put the pressure of the neighbors on him to make this decision. And he said that was one of the hardest things he ever had to decide on. But he just had to go with his gut and with what the Holy Spirit was leading him to do. And he in the end did not do it, and it was a good thing, because it would not have given the landowners their fair share of income off that. And the Lord led him to someone who was a wind energy guy from California, and after being in negotiations with them and getting a lease drawn up, he took it to his attorney, and the attorney said, this is the best wind energy lease I've ever seen in my life. Like, you sign this. Like, this is going to be the best. You're not getting anything better than this. So just by not giving into that pressure and the pressure of his neighbors, because when you get a bunch of angry ranchers on your butt, it's not fun. So on top of money being involved and stuff. So just having that as an example in my life, it's been neat to see just how he didn't cave into that pressure and what God made out
Just
of obedience.
Tremendous example.
So I guess to be a little more direct, like with you're part of our Work as Worship series, and seeing so for me and Dakota as future pastors, one of our jobs is to get our people in our congregation to mobilize and live out their faith on a daily basis in their workplaces, in their homes, and all of that stuff. And I think there's been a real push in recent years about seeing every career as a type of ministry.
Oh yeah.
And it's not just what me and Dakota do as ministry. It's you guys just as much as anybody else, because you're going to have an impact on people that whatever pastor is over you is never going to have, because he doesn't know them. You know them. So kind of how have you seen you've kind of given examples that you've seen your dad do it. Kind of what are your hopes of your career, however it ends up, that you can say, this is not just something I'm doing to make a living, to take care of my family. This is me trying to advance the kingdom of God and trying to make an impact on people that's more than just this job.
Yeah. So for me personally, one thing I've always seen is in business, we have money, and the word has to be carried out somehow. The word isn't free. You can't. It's not free to take money across the oceans to people, or even in your backyard. It takes money. So that's one way that I can give into that ministry, is through money, and but then just also through example, whereas someone who's turned off to church, quote unquote church, not that they don't want to go to the church house, they've had bad experiences, but they're okay with me, I can be an example to them and bring them to Christ through an unconventional way, and then get them to the place where they need to be with you guys, the pastors. So definitely in my career, I've even seen that now. That's something I want to do, is just be able to lead people to Christ through that avenue of just relationship, and then just getting on daily,
Because I know with your family, you're a very giving family. Just listen, your your parents and stuff. Like, y'all are always part of. Y'all are always doing stuff. Y'all are always involved. Y'all stay busy. Y'all are good stewards with y'all's money, from what I hear. Like, y'all think things through, and you aren't just blowing money. It's a very kingdom-minded family.
Yeah, we're just conduits. My dad has explained it like we're just conduits. God is bringing down the blessings, and we're just the conduit to get it into the kingdom.
Yeah, which we need, because we even as pastors, want to be minister, we need people like you, which is really neat. But
yeah, well, this is something that I just kind of thought of off the cuff. I know there's a lot of people that, even Christians, who aren't keen on the oil industry and things of that nature, because they think of the damage it does to the earth, and we're supposed to take care of it. God said, kind of, what are y'all's take on that? Do y'all think you're doing a disservice to humanity, or do you think you're helping humanity? Do you think you're hurting the earth or helping it, or neither?
I think there's always room for improvement. And there's
as a Christian, how do you view that?
Yeah. So, the Bible says the earth is the Lord and the fullness thereof, and if we're heirs according to salvation, Adam was given dominion over the earth, and so that includes the minerals. If you're able to eat a steak, you should be able to put gas in your tank. But there are definitely improvements that need to be made in some ways. There's always ways that you can do things more efficiently, and that's always getting improved upon in the oil industry. And there is a lot of negative aspects or negative connotations with the oil and gas industry for some reason. And I think partly it has to do with the greed, we were talking about earlier, just the ability to take advantage of people, as well as malfunctions in the industry, just like the oil spills and stuff. And so definitely there's going to be mistakes that happen. But, until we stop driving cars and heating our home with gas, like, we're going to need it. And so that's another thing about that is it's good to diversify, and the wind energy is really coming on strong right now. We actually just are getting into that in the business with putting up a wind farm, and just as another way, because that's a great opportunity. In West Texas, the wind's always blowing.
Yeah.
So that's another avenue.
Heck, it blows here. It's crazy.
Oh yeah. So yeah, that's just there being a negative connotation with that. There's always going to be problems, just like, there's going to be problems if you're working at an assembly line in a factory and doing something. But yeah, they're definitely honing in on it and getting things improved, and making new regulations and stuff that are going into that. And so I guess it's kind of different for us because we're ranchers. We love the land. Like, I like pretty things. I don't like seeing it all messed up by the oil field people. And I guess that's another thing that goes into it, is learning how to write your leases to make sure people don't take advantage of your land surface.
They treat it.
Yeah, treat it well.
Same thing with hunters.
Yeah.
Like, they're finding out on the West that the whole hunting argument is it's not a very white and black issue, and that most hunters really do care about the ecosystem and everything like that, and preserve. So it's not a white and black issue.
Kind of finding a balance between.
Finding a really good balance.
We've got to dig to get what we need, but we also don't want to just completely destroy.
Well, yeah, you don't need to pour a 800-foot grout caliche pit or pad and leave it there for 25 years with oil spills on it and corrosion and stuff. There's ways that you can clean that up. And that's one of the things about this energy management is it's all how you write your lease. And so if you write in your lease, hey, you have to do this and this, clean up this, make sure this doesn't happen, it'll happen.
Yeah.
So I think a lot of people just get taken advantage of by the oil fields attorneys that want to come in there and do everything as cheap as possible, make the most profit for the company, and then get out. Whereas I'm coming at it from a different angle of being the landowner, someone who actually owns the land. And my dad, the land that my dad grew up on, where our oil and gas has been our family for over 100 years. So it's not something you want to trash or anything. And so it gives us a different aspect of looking at things on how you can write a lease to protect what you love and be a good steward of the land that we own.
Wow. Well, man, I think with the future ahead, I just want to say, man, I'm praying, man, for you and everything in your future.
Oh, thank you, man.
I know we'll try to keep you up to date, man, on the podcast. Once you get you on here more and talk to you and
Awesome.
discuss, you're making an impact, man. I know that someone out there in West Texas is going to be part of business and part of the oil industry and the ranching and everything like that. That I know that they're serving the Lord, and you're one of those guys. And so I'm just praying for your future and everything like that, man.
Well, hey, before we go, we want to get in a little more stick. People may not know this. You are a musician as well.
Yes, you are, and you are too humble about it. And so
the man's on iTunes.
Me and Clayton are going to promote you right now.
All right.
Okay.
Thank you, man.
I want you to tell a little bit about.
Let him promote him.
Okay. Well, I don't usually do this, but I've got 2 songs on iTunes. I like country music a lot, especially Texas country. And so I was able to write 2 songs with this incredible writer in Lubbock, and we recorded it and produced it, and I actually got to perform it at a dance hall in Lubbock, and it was so much fun. They're called Settle Down and Story of Us, and Settle Down is just it's a fun song about Chloe Beth, actually. She's my girlfriend is the inspiration between that. You can listen to that and find out the lyrics, but listen carefully. So it's a spin on just a contemporary country song. So It's got a good message. And then Story of Us is just the story of my family, just kind of back to what we're talking about today. Just how my great-great-grandfather came from North Carolina with nothing and started a ranch, lived in a dugout, and now we're here, and I want to keep that going. So it's a lot of fun to do that, and I like doing it. It's a fun hobby. And
now, is that something you plan to pursue further, or is that just going to kind of just be a side project when you get time?
I don't really know. I'm not one to be in the spotlight a lot.
Too humble.
Yeah, it's I don't know, man.
He says that till one of these songs goes viral.
Yeah,
it's tough because like there's just so much that you can do with that and take you places. But
can we have our listeners listen to a little bit of your song?
Give them a little demo.
Check it out. We'll make sure this works correctly. Here, we'll put it right here.
This is a story of us.
Cool summer evening, rocking on the porch, taking in another sunset. Good old stories about where we're from,
I feel like I'm on the ranch now.
about all that we have. A picture of Granddad on the steps of that country church. Youngins gathered round, hearing about life and all it's worth. This is the story of us. Blood, sweat, and tears in the Texas dust. Left it all out in the field.
Well, folks, man, if you listen to more of that, where can the listeners find your
You can
music?
find that on iTunes, Spotify, Apple Music, and I just uploaded it to YouTube. So
Riley
go
Glass.
check it out.
Riley
Yeah.
Glass.
Riley Glass, Story of Us, and Settle Down.
Awesome, man.
Yeah.
Is there any connections as well as the listeners can just get in contact with you through Facebook, Instagram to follow up with you and your
Yeah,
journey?
Facebook. You can check me out on Facebook. That's a good spot to look for it. New announcements and stuff. And don't have anything in the works quite yet, but there very well could be some new stuff coming out soon.
Wonderful, man. Well, as well as everything you're doing, I'm supporting you. I'm a big fan of your music career, man, because you're awesome.
Appreciate it.
Yeah, you've got fans here that anytime you got new stuff, it'll be on here.
Awesome. Thank you.
All right, man. Well, Riley, we're so thankful that you came on the show.
Oh, so glad to be here. Thanks for having me. I enjoyed it.
All right, man. We're out. Dakota Adair here. You have just listened to the Falling Forward podcast. Connect with us at fallingforwardpodcast.com to join the conversation, access show notes, or reach out to today's guest. Don't forget to subscribe to the podcast and leave a review. It is very much appreciated. The song used in this podcast is called Stunts by Artur Nelson. Find his music on iTunes or Spotify. And thank you for listening, and remember to keep falling forward.
Then don't turn around now. And my heart is open. My heart is open now. My heart is open. My heart is open.